Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf. This is, of course, September 23rd, 2014. Boy, this year is just flying right by. I want to welcome you back to the show. We had a short break last week, and, of course, I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and joining me is, of course, my co-host, LPGA professional Cindy Miller. Cindy, welcome back.
Well, thank you, Ted. It's great to be here.
And always enjoy talking golf, one of our favorite pastimes, of course, and professions. Certainly enjoy that. Let me just, before, Cindy, I let everybody know who's going to be on the program today. Very, very exciting show today. Just remember that everybody, you can tune in live every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time on blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf, or you can just visit blogtalkradio.com and you can type up Women of Golf in the search key. If you want to call into the program anytime during the live broadcast, certainly love to hear from you. You can do so by calling area code 347-945-5855. That's 347-945-5855. Cindy and I would certainly love for you to chime in and say hello, or if you have any questions during the program, we'd certainly love to hear from you. You can also email any questions or comments about the program to the womenofgolf@gmail.com. That's womenofgolf@gmail.com. Or you can also, if you want to get in touch with Cindy directly, you can get in touch with her at cindy@cindymillergolf.com at any time. We got a great show today. Just after the initial hellos, of course, we're going to have joining us is Bret Blakely. He's the president and co-founder of Oncore Golf, and he's going to be here talking about Oncore for a little bit. And then a little bit later in the program, it's always nice to have Alan Miller, of course, Cindy's husband, PGA professional Alan Miller, is going to be joining us a little bit later in the broadcast. And I got a few questions for the two of them about beginner golfers. So we're going to talk a little bit about that with Alan and Cindy a little bit later in the broadcast. But right now, Cindy, what's been happening in the wonderful world of Cindy Miller Golf?
Well, it's been kind of crazy. I went last weekend, not this past weekend. I was privileged enough to be a part of the NFL alumni weekend, of course, with the Buffalo Bills. And Saturday night we went to the NFL Gala where we raised a bunch of money. And that's where I saw Jim Kelly, and I gave him a big hug and said, "Thank God you're cancer-free." And then, and then, of course, last week, the week before, was a great week because the Bills got bought by Terry Pagula, which is amazing that they get to stay in Buffalo. And then, of course, they beat the fish and squished the fish, as we call it in Buffalo. And so that was a great week. And then I went to Boston, and I played in the BJ's Charity Classic on the Legends Tour, and I had a great team from Bissell, the vacuum cleaner people, and I had so much fun with them. And we shot 18 under par.
Wow.
So needless to say, there must have been an awful lot of cheaters with their handicaps. That was a great time. And then I came home and I gave some lessons, and then I got to go yesterday to a country club in Greenwich, Connecticut for the Legends Tour called Round Hill Country Club, which I've never heard of, never knew where it was, and it was amazing. And I played in the Duane Reade Charity Classic. Duane Reade is a huge pharmacy, largest drugstore in New York City, owned by Walgreens, and I got to play with some great guys from Walgreens yesterday and got home very late this morning just to be with you.
Well, I feel honored and privileged, and I want to thank you. And Cindy, you're always hopping here and there, and I know you're getting ready to do your Florida swing here in a little bit now that the weather's cooling down, and before you know it, the snow will be flying in Buffalo. So, of course, Cindy doesn't like to give up her golf and wants to make sure that she keeps her competitive juices flowing, and she'll be coming down to Florida here in just when are you coming? When's the first time you come into Florida?
The 30th, next Tuesday.
Wow. So already starting the Florida swing, and always love to have.
And then we've got the LPGA Regional Summit coming up in West Palm Beach the end of that week, which will be great. And then I'm going to San Antonio, Texas, to become Golf Psych certified, which is what our series was when we the Own Your Game series. So I'm going to become certified now, so I can help more people become less wacky on the golf course.
Yeah. And we know that everybody needs a lot of help out there. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit later in the program when Alan joins us. But first, I see that Bret has already up here in queue. So let's bring him on here. As I said, our first guest, of course, is Bret Blakely. He's the president, co-founder of Oncore Golf. And let me just give you a little bit about Bret, and then we'll bring him on here, and he can tell us a little bit about Oncore. Bret, of course, he went to, and I'm hoping I'm saying this, Canisius College in Canisius College in Buffalo, New York. I'm glad you're here this morning, where he graduated with, of course, a BA in communications and a minor in marketing and advertising. He was Bret, being told he was always outgoing, realized that every kind of business needs someone who can communicate with others effectively, and I'm going to bring him on here so he can help me say that properly next time. Always been drawn to creative interests and was fascinated by his marketing and advertising classes, which, of course, prompted him the minor in those fields. Bret also worked for several international advertising agencies, and in his time there, he began his entrepreneurial journey by co-founding Oncore Golf. So let's bring Bret out here, and then we'll get him to talk a little bit about Oncore. Bret,
good morning. How are you?
We're doing well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Not a problem. And I apologize. It's Canisius?
It's Canisius College. Yep.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that Cindy was here this morning to help me get that correct. Bret, welcome to the show, and I think probably first and foremost, why don't you tell us just a little bit more about yourself and how you sort of got into the golf industry?
Sure. Well, I mean, you kind of nailed it. I know that is my background. My advertising interest is what kind of took me to New York. I had always wanted to spend some time there, and coming out of college, I've just felt it was a great opportunity to go and try and do something interesting and something that I was passionate about. And the advertising industry, although it lends itself to a creative outlet, unless you're a graphic designer or a copywriter, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be. I was more of the interface between client and creative, and that's what really kind of put a fire in my belly about wanting to start my own business, because I knew that would allow me the creative freedom and for me to really make the decisions and that I wanted to. And the guy who invented the golf ball was a employee for my father, so I had known about it for a couple of years. Now, back then, this golf ball was drastically different, but I just saw it as a product that could be marketed and commercialized and could be something that could, kind of open some eyes in an industry that hadn't seen much change or differentiation in many years when it came to golf ball design and performance.
Right. Now, let me just to sort of bring everybody up to speed here, because I didn't mention that in the intro. Obviously, Oncore, the product that you have is a golf ball, which is, as you just indicated, a little different than what's out there right now. Tell us a little bit about Oncore Golf in general, and then the product that you're bringing to the market.
Sure. Well, Steve Colton is the other co-founder. I met him while I was in New York, and he is the good golfer of the two of us. He played for NYU, and so Cindy's helping me out, though, become a good golfer. But the company of Oncore Golf, we started this with an idea of, all right, we've got a really interesting, different product. It's the most radical departure from what golf ball construction has looked like in over 30 years. And so we kind of wanted to model the brand after that as well. We wanted to take advantage of the fact that we were a little bit younger. We wanted to fully embrace the fact that we're underdogs in a near impossible industry to break into, and that everything that we do has to be a little bit of a blue ocean, a different out of the box type of approach. And so we've done that with the branding and with the marketing and with the team that we've surrounded ourselves with. And as for the product itself, it's the world's only hollow metal core golf ball. So it's a ball that has a 0.9-inch hollow steel core. The easiest way to understand what that does is, I'm sure you know that golf ball manufacturers have been trying to develop a truly perimeter weighted ball for years, and this is the most effective way to do it. The hollow steel core is able to withstand the impact, so it doesn't crush, but it also is able to stay within the weight, the weight restrictions for a golf ball's legality. And what it's doing is it's shifting that energy, the weight to the perimeter of the ball, so you're getting a reduction in side spin, you're getting an increase in gyroscopic or rifle spin, and really what you're doing is just getting a whole different set of performance benefits that traditional rubber core technology can't replicate.
Right. Let me ask you, Bret, if I can, an obvious question. I know you've kind of answered a little bit here, but there's obviously a lot of golf balls already on the market. Why develop another one? What was the purpose really to bring another one to the market, especially in a highly competitive market?
Sure, because although there are many golf balls, they are just various iterations of rubber core technology for the most part. A lot of it is marketing. These are established brands with long-standing reputations, and I'm sure you've been following, guys like Jack Nicklaus and Trump, and everybody's calling for innovation and saying that the game needs innovation. Well, this is the most innovative thing that I've seen in ages. And if you can, develop a product and bring to market a product that is vastly different from anything that these established, billion-dollar companies have brought to the market in over 3 decades, that I think is worth taking a shot at trying to make your own mark and trying to establish a new name to carry the game of golf into, the next generation, and to open it up to some younger golfers and try and invigorate some enthusiasm from people that may not, pick up the sport of golf. This is a eye-catching type of technology, and we hope that it does, help bring back some interest.
Right. And I agree. A lot of people have talked about some of the changes that have already gone on thus far with the golf ball, and with respect to distance and accuracy and so forth. But really, there hasn't been as much change as what a lot of people realize. Let me ask you the first thing: how long has your product been to the market, and what has been some of the feedback so far?
Sure. Well, we have basically spent the last 2-3 years where it has been available, but it's been in somewhat of a beta phase. The ball was developed and patented years ago. When the inventor first invented it, it had a much bigger core, and he did develop the ball, but he was not a sports marketer. He had no interest in really starting a business. It was more of, this guy is really smart, and he came up with a really interesting golf ball and, got it produced. Since then, when Steve and I took it over, Doug, who is the inventor, and Steve and I all knew that we had to make some changes to it to make it a really, a product that the mass market could play with. So that meant shrinking the core and all that. And then the last few years were a lot of just test marketing, doing small runs of inventory, getting feedback from, players of all skill levels. And when Doug first developed this, it was intended for, the mid to high handicapper. We knew that the accuracy component, which this ball does really help with, it's a 20 to 30% improvement on dispersion off the tee, and we've had that robotically tested. We felt, of course, that's going to be where some of the hackers and the weekend warriors are going to enjoy it the most. What has happened over the last couple of years is we've continued to improve, the mantle composition, the cover, all of that, to make it more playable, a better feel. We've found that extremely skilled golfers, scratch golfers, are giving us just as positive feedback, if not more positive, which obviously was a surprise to us. But for us to really make a mark, we need the skilled golfers to recognize its benefit and enjoy playing with it just as much as the weekend warrior. So the feedback's been outstanding. We've been getting a lot of international press recognition. We've had pretty much every major golf blogger write a review on it. It's far and few between that we find somebody who doesn't like the product, but even when we don't, you can't take it to heart, because there are hundreds of thousands of people that don't like the Pro V1, yet it's the highest selling golf ball in the world. So you win the majority and you're doing okay.
Yeah, and that's so true. And I think Cindy will certainly attest to that, playing on the Legends Tour. Everybody has, it's like much similar with the golf clubs. Everybody isn't going to play necessarily ping, or everybody isn't going to play tailor-made or so forth. Some certain things fit certain people's eyes and playability, and so there's always room for something else. But it's certainly a very bold move, to say the least, because as I mentioned earlier, it is a highly competitive market. There is certainly a lot of, and I don't want to say dinosaurs, but a lot of people well established in the market, like Titleist and Callaway and some of the others out there. So it's different, definitely a very difficult market to break into. And but obviously you've got something that is uniquely different than what's sort of the status quo. Where do you see Oncore Golf's positioning itself in the field? Where do you find your niche is going to be, do you think?
Well, to be honest, I want Oncore to be the trendsetters, the innovators from core to cover. In this last year, we have made some massive moves towards that goal. I want Oncore to be recognized as the go-to guys in the golf ball industry for, being known for consistently bringing out high performance, high technology, proprietary, revolutionary core and cover technology that makes the game interesting, makes it more enjoyable, and, really kind of takes it into the next level. We've already filed provisional patents on new core technology. We're currently developing a tour version of the hollow metal core technology, and I think that's kind of our bread and butter. I think if we try and spread ourselves too thin and do run before we walk, we're gonna suffer for that. And I think we've got a chance, because the first product that we've brought to market is so different, and because we got the USGA approval, which was a huge mountain to climb, and a historic achievement actually in the context of the history of golf. It was only the second time since 1921 that a new technology has made it into to be allowed in golf ball construction. So that was a huge battle for us, and the provisional patents that we filed to be able to continue to develop, these will all fall into and within the USGA guidelines. So I think that is what our focus should be, and it's what it will be. And in the last year, we've really brought on some of the industry's most accomplished executives, ball developers, everything to be a part of Team Oncore to help make sure we can fully realize that dream and bring everything to the forefront of the industry.
It's fantastic. Bret, let me also ask you, I think, an obvious question. I think with any product that comes out on the market, most people obviously want to try and get somebody of any sort of notoriety on the tours to sort of endorse that. Is there anybody that you're looking at or that currently maybe has been testing the ball that you can share with us that has given you some feedback?
Well, we do have some up and coming, some names that some people that we've been getting the balls in the hands of. One of the things that we did to help us do this was we got John Geiberger, son of Al Geiberger, and John was also the the national champion coach at Pepperdine University. Well, he had played our ball after getting some from one of our advisors, who's Jeff Harold of Club Glove. And so when we went to the PGA show, John Geiberger came up to us and basically would not leave our booth and spent about 2 hours every day talking to us, raving, because he played our ball for 7 days straight, each day against a different tour ball, shot for shot, and he just loved it. So we thought he would be a perfect person to bring on as head of player development. So he seeks out, those collegiate athletes that could turn pro, the web.com players, those types of people. We fully understand that getting a guy who's, sinking a putt on the Golf Channel is going to catapult any company to success, but we also are, we're not trying to just, say we're here and then die out because we've spent all our money trying to get a guy who's going to, have that kind of television time. Our focus is on getting a generation of golfers, capturing lightning in a bottle with one of these young people who is really drawn to the brand and to the product and who is willing to try something new and learn to play with it. And we also have, some guys that are more established that we're trying to figure out different creative ways of compensation to bring them on board. I think as we start to make some penetration, we've got players that have written into us asking about it and curious, and I think, that's something that we can leverage and use to our advantage, that we don't always have to beg somebody to want to be a part of Oncore. There is a lot of interest just because it is so different, so that's kind of what we're banking on, and hopefully within the next 6 months we'll be able to make some big announcements about some tour players.
Yeah, and that's a very valid point. You don't want to, as you said, put the cart before the horse. You don't want to get in a situation where you've got as much as I know you want to get the product out there and get it well known. You certainly don't want to be spending all of your resources, paying tour players and that to use the ball just for endorsements, because, obviously that's great, but it can tap your resources very quickly if you're not careful. So I think it's great building it sort of from, and I hate to use this term, but everybody uses it now, is sort of a grassroots. Really, is what you're trying to do is get some of the younger guns out there that are up and coming, getting them playing it day in, day out as they're making their way towards some of the larger tours, right?
Right. I mean, that's exactly it. It's a marathon, so it's something that we're in for the long haul. And part of it is an organic growth. And if we were worried about trying to cash in a lotto ticket in 3 months' time, then maybe we would aggressively figure out a way to come up with $200,000 to pay a tour player. But that's not it. We think that this is a technology, and the patents that we've filed for are technologies that could stand the test of time and maybe be, maybe this is what golf balls are looking like for the next 20, 30 years. And our whole strategy as far as distribution is selling through golf. We just put together a massive national sales rep force, 25. Every person has 15 years minimum experience. These are literally the best guys in the industry. And, we want to treat them like family because they're the ones going into the trusted professionals saying, hey, this is a new technology. Yep, it's legal. Yep, you're going to have customers asking for it. And that is how we think, Oncore will have some longevity. And we're not so worried about the right away, which is kind of what society is today. Everything's now, but we see a much longer and more fruitful path by going at it organically and grassroots. Right.
And I agree with that. I think that's a smart move, especially this day and age. I was down at the PGA show this last January, and certainly a lot of products there, but I'm sure when I go back this year, you're going to see some growth in some areas, and I'm sure there'll be some that you won't see there, maybe because they've gone the other route and tried to grow too fast, and that can kill a business more than anything else. Let me ask you, I think really an obvious question here, because this is a new technology to the market. Right now it's kind of, if you will, maybe a little below the radar of some of the other bigger guys there, but would you be receptive to an opportunity if one of the larger guys come up and say, hey, we like this, we'd be interested in buying that patent and bring it into our, say, Titleist as an example, or even Callaway? Is that something that Oncore would consider down the road, or do you want to try and keep yourself unique?
Who says we haven't been offered that? No. You know what? It's one of those things where, money's great. If they were going to offer something to license that technology, of course you're talking a life-changing figure. But to be honest, this is an amazing industry to be able to make a living in. If we are able to do this on our own, I would be much more proud and be able to, pat myself on the back by saying, hey, we could have taken a big payday, but for one, I think we can take a much bigger one down the road should we choose. But I also want to be able to look back and say, we brought a new name, known name in a golf industry, and we made a difference. We did something. This is something that we can say that we've been proud of. We don't want somebody else doing the heavy work. Are we open to it? Sure, why not?
Sure.
But I think all of us over here really believe in the strategy that we're going with, the team that we've built, and the product that we have now and the products that we're developing and the guys that we have developing. And I think with all that mixed together, why not just go for it? Why not try and do it yourself and see if you can make history?
Right, exactly. Cindy, let me ask you a question with respect to this sort of technology. Obviously, you play on the tour. You may have a favorite ball that you play with week in and week out when you're on the Legends Tour. How important is it to a lot of the players to taking away the endorsements and things like that some players may have? Is it something that you're sort of very, I hate to use this word, but religious to, or are a lot of the players open to experimentation?
I think you find it both ways. I think once it's explained to the player that this is a different core and a different technology, then they're all a little inquisitive and curious and want to say, oh, well, let me try that. And as long as it doesn't perform negatively, when you compare against your ball of preference, that they might say, this isn't bad. And that's what I have found with the Oncore golf ball. It does not perform negatively against a Titleist or a TaylorMade or a Nike or a Callaway or a Bridgestone or a Strixon,
Right.
That's what I have found. Then will you have the tried and true people that absolutely will not change their golf ball? Absolutely.
Sure.
You'll find out with anything, with golf clubs, with cars,
Yeah.
But, it depends on the person. But I think for the majority of the amateurs, anything that's going to help them, they're going to want to play with.
Right. And Bret, just maybe kind of touch just very briefly on that again a little bit. Some of the differences, if you will, that you have found with your product that sort of help the average weekend warrior amateur golfer out there. Some of the benefits that they can reap from this product. Sure.
Well, and I'll kind of describe why it's a product not only for the amateur but also for the skill golfer. This ball, with the robotic testing, we use Golf Labs, which is the industry standard. So we were able to intentionally impart a hook or a slice. Now, of course, there are a million variables. There's wind conditions, there's swing speed, there's loft, club angle, all that. But, what we found is that there is about a 20 to 30% improvement on dispersion. So the accuracy component comes into play the most noticeably on the long shots, and that's because if you were to take a camera and actually look at the spin characteristics right at the moment of impact, that versus a rubber core, they look pretty much identical. It's the perimeter weighting that kind of acts like a figure skater when she goes into a spin and she puts her arms outward. Her spin starts to slow down. Well, that's exactly what our ball is doing. So if you hit it off the toe, if you mishit it, it minimizes your errors on those long shots because that side spin is going to decay the longer it's in flight. The other part that I mentioned was the rifle spin. That's a huge, huge, huge component and reason this ball performs the way it does. Rifle spin, bullet spin, gyroscopic spin, it's called a lot of things, but it's the same thing you see a bullet or a football do. It helps with stabilization in flight. It helps cut through adverse wind conditions. It does have a high backspin around the greens. And the putting has been something that we consistently hear positive feedback about. It seems to hold a much truer line on the putting surface. It doesn't break as much on the undulation of the greens. I kind of liken it to a wide track tire. That's how I would most simply explain what it's doing on the putting surface. But again, the thing that's nice about this, the reason that it's not negative for a a skilled player is because, I've gotten questions about, well, can you work the ball? If there's, such less side spin, can you work it? Well, yeah, you can. Is it going to be able to be worked the same as, a tour ball for a tour player? Not always. But as I mentioned, the side spin decay comes the longer the ball is in flight. Well, you're usually not working a ball on these massively long shots. You're doing that on the shorter shots. So you are still able to work it. It's not like, oh, well, it's a laser guided missile. If it was, it would never be approved by the USGA. It's just a ball that happens to have a lot of performance benefits on a variety of shots that I think are going to benefit the vast majority of levels of skill and golfers.
Well, that's really what it's all about. Is in this industry, whether you're in the equipment or product side of the market, or as Cindy and I are in the teaching end of it, you want to be able to do what you can to help all levels of golfers play their best game. And Bret, we want to thank you for coming on. But just before I let you go, just let everyone know here where, if they're interested in finding out more information about your product, where they can go to do that, and where they can go to purchase it if necessary.
You bet. Well, the website is oncoregolf.com, and it's ONCORE golf.com. So we do have the balls available online. As I mentioned about our national reps, they're actually currently on their fall runs for pre-booking. So I think people really start noticing our presence in the pro shops come spring, because right now is the pre-booking time. But it's going to be sold through golf professionals at pro shops and off-course specialty shops and online as well. And we do have overseas distribution, but our focus is definitely on the U.S. because it is such an important market to reinvigorate and to make a difference in. And I just want to thank you and Cindy both for having me on. What a great opportunity and platform to be able to talk about the technology, and really nice talking with you. So thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate having you on, Bret, and much continued success and luck. It sounds like a fantastic product. Definitely needs to be checked out. And for those of you tuning in this morning, make sure that you go to oncoregolf.com to learn a little bit more about this great technology. And Bret, thank you for joining us, and we'll certainly love to have you come back anytime.
Oh, I'd love to. I appreciate it, and hopefully I'll see you down at the PGA show.
And definitely we'll be there this year, and I'll make sure I stop by the booth. Thank you.
Wonderful. Take care.
Thanks, Bret.
All right.
Thanks, Cindy.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Okay, that was Bret Blakely, of course, the president co-founder of Oncore Golf. And Cindy, it sounds like a really fantastic product. Now, I know you've had a chance to use the product and obviously had some interesting observations with it. And that, what did you really like? What were some of the things that you found that you liked about it?
It's kind of a sick thing, but I really like the sound. It definitely sounds different, and the first time you hit the ball, it almost sounds like a gunshot going off. But to me, I love that. It sounds like you're just cracking it, and I really I like the sound of it.
Did you notice any?
A lot of people don't like the sound of it, but I happen to like the sound of it.
Yeah. Did you notice anything as far as playability? Did you see anything different that maybe what you're used to, or is it pretty conventional?
Well, you know what? I didn't notice anything really different. A lot of people notice that it does go a little bit straighter. Fortunately for me, I don't hit the ball real far, but I do get to hit it pretty straight. So I would not purchase the ball to help me hit it straighter, but there are millions of golfers who would purchase the ball to hit it straighter. So, and that's the majority of the people that play golf.
Exactly.
So like he said, it does have less spin and does go straighter. So that's a definite benefit of the golf ball.
All right. Well, we'll certainly keep our eyes on that. And again, we want to wish Bret and his team much continued success at Oncore Golf. Cindy, I'm going to let you introduce our next guest. I see he's been waiting here very patiently here for a few minutes. Since you know him so well, why don't you invite our next guest on the program?
I would love to. The next guest we have is my husband, Alan Miller, a life member, past champion of the PGA Tour. His success in the game was recognized early on from college golf at the University of Georgia. Became the number 2 ranked U.S. amateur in America in 1969 and 1970 by Golf Digest magazine. He's a member of the 2 Walker Cup teams, 1969 and 1971, and a member of the 1970 Eisenhower World Amateur Cup team. His fluid swing was well known amongst the experts before he joined the tour. He's played in 5 Masters, the U.S. Open, as well as numerous PGA championships. His career as a PGA Tour player spanned 15 years. He was the 1974 Tallahassee Open champion, and he regularly played with and competed against such greats as Lee Trevino, Tom Watson, and Jack Nicklaus. He is the second purest ball striker that Dave Pelz has ever tested, Lee Trevino being number 1. And he has been patient enough and waiting for me for almost 33 years. We got married on Halloween 33 years ago. I would like to welcome my husband and my honey, Alan Miller.
Well, thank you so much for having me again.
Boy, that deserves a really expensive gift, Alan, I think, for that introduction.
I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to go there. I did sound awful good, though. I should have her as my press agent.
I was just going to say that. Yeah, you can ask for a better press agent. Okay, guys, listen. I wanted to, since Alan, you're back on here, and I appreciate you coming on and offering your support. I wanted to ask the two of you, really from some different perspectives, but just a few questions since we've got the time here. Just about working with beginning golfers. And I think that the first question I really want to get out there, and Alan, I'll start with you since you're our guest. What are some of the things that you want to do to start when you're working with a player for the very first time, regardless of what level? Let's say a brand new person to the sport. What are some of the things that you're going to do first and foremost to sort of get them started in the game? What are some things that you look at doing?
Well, I don't ask a lot of questions. Cindy does ask a lot of questions because she delves into the person itself. I kind of big on just the golf swing itself, and I'll deal with the person later. But I just watch him hit about 5 or 6 balls. That's the way I was treated when I changed my whole game by a named teacher, Bob Tusky. He just watched me hit a few balls. He didn't sit there and talk a whole lot before we started. So I watch him hit and see, and if it's a beginner, I just want to see what their instincts are. You know, they grab the club cross-handed, upside down, or what the heck do they do? Because everybody has instincts starting off, whether it's right, wrong, or different, and then you kind of go from there, seeing where what they are doing and what you can probably help them with, and get them some kind of path to getting better. Or if the beginner, just get them started to learn some simple basics of the game of golf. But I really don't. I just let them start swinging a little bit and see what's natural for them first.
Right, and Cindy, before I jump to you, Alan said something very interesting, and I want to just follow up on that. And then, Cindy, I'm going to pose the same question to you. You know, Alan, obviously you get a lot of different swing types that come in, and different techniques and so forth. What happens, and what's your approach if you have somebody that, let's say, has a very unorthodox-looking approach to the game? There's a lot of people out there that will try to sort of reinvent the wheel, or there's others that may try to sort of work with what that person has. What's your sort of approach on that? Do you try to make too many changes? If it's working good, do you sort of leave it alone and just build on that, or do you try to sort of, as I said, reinvent the wheel?
I personally believe that every person, as long as it's not physically handicapped, have a natural ability to hit a golf swing, a golf club, and hit a golf ball straight, because we were given by God a body that performs the way it should just to hit a golf ball straight. So I watch them hit, then I say, all right, well, let's do this first, and I give them some thoughts that they may not understand and even think about what the heck they're trying to do, and all of a sudden they start hitting it better than they probably ever hit it, using their own natural body shapes. Because again, everybody's given an ability to do that, and beyond that, I'm making changes, and most of the time they don't realize I'm making changes. Usually, the comment I get towards the end is, well, now what am I going to do when I make a regular swing? I said, guess what? You are now making a regular swing. So I don't tell them they're doing this wrong. They got to think of the golf swing this way or that way. And then I make them think about what we did and why we did it, and does it follow physics, and it's logical. And as long as it is, they're pretty well satisfied because they're getting the results.
Right, exactly. And the reason why I asked that is obviously, as Cindy mentioned in the intro, in your intro, that you've played with some of the greats like Nicholas and Trevino, and Trevino obviously had a very unorthodox looking swing compared to many of the players on today's tour. And I just wonder if he was to come out as a brand new player now, whether some of the coaches and that out there would try to, change a lot of, despite him hitting the ball so well, would try to change that and maybe make him swing more like a Steve Elkington or a Bob Tway or some of the other newer players that have that sort of picture-perfect swing. Is that a danger, do you think, on tour, that sometimes that happens?
Well, it's a danger for anybody, but the point is with somebody like Lee Trevino, they all have some things in common. They're very, very similar, and it's basically through the impact zone, whether it was Ben Hogan, Jack Nicklaus, Miller Barber, Hale Irwin, Johnny Miller. We all look different. We used to have a saying on tour, everybody looked different going back. We all look the same into and through the ball. Right. There are some very common things, and again, that our body's already built to do naturally if they know how to do it. Lee I've played a million times with. In fact, I was his partner at the Bing Crosby, which is now the AT&T, when I was an amateur. And we walked off the first hole arm in arm, and he said, partner, we're going to have fun this week because we hit the ball exactly the same. Our swings look totally different.
Right.
We hit the ball the same, basically, way because we had the same motion through the impact zone. And I think it's a very common denominator, and what I believe in is the simplest way to possibly achieve that. So I don't say, you do this and you do that, and you need to learn how to do this on the backswing or whatever. In fact, I very seldom focus on the backswing other than just get them to swing the golf club back and forth. And I'm not going to reveal how I do it to the national audience right yet. But, basically I say swing your arms, and it's amazing to them what can happen if they just do that.
Well, hopefully when we get you back another time, Alan, you'll share that secret with us. But I understand.
Well, it's
exactly
not a secret. I just don't want people to say something. I learned a long time ago also, if you give somebody a quick tip, all you're doing is messing them up.
Yeah, I agree.
If you can start them thinking about a process and what may be a better way to do something, then they accept it. But if you just give them a quick tip, in my days of playing Pro-Am, I tell the people, I'm not helping you while we're playing. I'll help you when we get done if you want. But right now, you just go out and play golf and try to have some fun.
Right. Exactly. Well said. Cindy, obviously, as Alan pointed out, you have a slightly different approach to it. You like to ask a little more questions. Just give us a general overview, if you will, when you're working with a brand new student. What are some of the steps that you take in preparation?
Well, I want to know what they're looking for. Why are you here? What do you want? If I could help you fix one thing today, what would it be? And typically, depending on the level of the player, the skill level, they typically don't really know what they want. They just want to stop the pain. The pain of hitting bad shots, the pain of topping it. I got to keep my head down. Well, maybe you don't have to keep your head down. What do you want the result to be? Do you want the ball to go in the air? When you say, I got to keep my arm straight. Well, that's what someone's told you. What do you want the result to be? So that's where I come from. And then I watch their swing, and then I ask them, where have you been? How did you get here? You want to fix it, but where have you been? How did you get here? How many lessons have you taken? How many times does your husband tell you what you're doing wrong? And then we go from there. And then they figure out, holy cow, I don't have to work so hard, and this is way easier. Alan and I teach the same theory. If the face is straight, the ball goes, or square, the ball goes straight. But I just want to know a little bit more about what are you doing? Why are you here? How'd you get here? What are you looking for?
Now, you've mentioned, Cindy, on the program before that obviously, you learn a lot through teaching, which helps with your game. You're able to, because you are a tour player on the Legends Tour, and you go out there and have to, from time to time, fight your own demons, if you will. What are some of the things that you try to do that you bring from your play into your practice when you're teaching somebody?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
As an example, you obviously have things that maybe sometimes from time to time that are commonalities that other players may find. What are some things, I guess, experiences that you bring from on the course that you try to instill or bring into your teaching aspect?
Okay, well, again, I think a lot of it comes from a discernment of being able, having experienced it myself. We've got a young girl we teach, and this is becoming a reoccurring theme, that when she has a big tournament coming up, she is a very competitive perfectionist, and she seems to focus on all the things she does wrong. And needless to say, I've been there, done that, and so it happened this Saturday, and we got an email from her mom and dad that she had a meltdown at a tournament, and so she's almost sabotaging herself and creating her own pain, and I don't know that she's aware that that's happening. So we're having a mental lesson tonight, because you can talk yourself into winning or losing. I mean, needless to say, you can never control what you shoot, but you can definitely control your thoughts and your attitude and your choices of what you choose to think. So I'm very aware, and so is Alan, of what's going on in their head. And I'm sure you are as well. I mean, you can see someone beginning the meltdown before they know it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that
your swing is only as good as you use it. Well, I'm a big believer, and you got to have a decent swing. You got to know you can hit the ball fairly decent before you worry about how you use it. But it's only as good as you use it. So then the mental aspect that Cindy's talking about becomes vitally important, and that's what separates the people that become fairly well or very successful in golf versus the ones that just hang back and don't get anything done. But your swing, you got to be able to hit the ball where you want it to hit it first. Backtracking to the question, I know in my playing and when I teach a lot or Cindy teaches a lot, all of a sudden you start saying things, you say, oh, my God, I forgot about that in my own golf game, or you start becoming aware. How can you go out and play well teaching and watching all those bad swings? Well, I'm not watching the bad swings. I'm watching what I want to get them to do. And then I start remembering, you know what, I'm telling them to do it, and I forgot about doing it myself. So sometimes it helps you in your own game by thinking, what are you really telling the people, and are you doing the same thing? Do as I say, not as I do sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. Both chime in on this, and we'll let ladies go first. But that's a very valid point that Cindy makes about the mental side of things. Is a lot of times attitude and the thought process that goes on can greatly affect the outcome. And how do you overcome? What are some of the things that you try to do, Cindy? And then Alan, I'll ask you the same question. That you try to do when you working with the player and you see that the carpet's about to come out from or the chair is about to be kicked out from underneath them. What do you do to try and get them to regroup and refocus in a more positive light so that they're not going to go down that? What are some of the things that you do to help them in that area?
Well, I try to make them aware of what I believe they're thinking. I really try to say, the ball is going where you're swinging the club. The evidence of what you've just done is always the ball. So let's stop and ask, why did that just happen? And they really, sometimes they don't even want to do that. They just want to hit another shot. And they give control of their outcome to a ball that's already dead. And so I try to make them aware when I see them, rake and hit, and get madder by the swing. Time out. Do you realize that you're the one that's holding this club that's making this ball do this? Let's make it. Can you feel that? And they look up and they go, no, I can't feel it. Well, let's stop and ask the question, why did it just go where it goes? And so if I try to give people control and help them become aware of what they're doing, because we all know that we're the only ones holding the club. So I kind of sense, and I think most golf pros do that, hopefully they do, and say, wow, this person's just having fun being in their own pity party.
Well, sometimes I'll just sit back and they hit it decent or whatever, and they're good, better, and then they start not paying attention to what you've been working on. They just start hitting, and then they start hitting bad. Sometimes I'll just sit there for a while, and after they hit about 5 or 6 or 10 bad shots, I finally say, now you're ready to get back and figure out what's going on, or you're just going to sit here and just keep hitting it bad. You need to understand what you need to try to do Do you understand it? And are you able to put it into effect? Are you thinking about that? And usually right before somebody swings sometimes I'll say, now, what are you thinking right now? And the answer 9 times out of 10 is hitting the ball. And I say, didn't I tell you earlier that we want the ball to get in the way, and I had you hit balls with your eyes closed and you hit it every time, so why would you ever try to hit the ball when you know it's just supposed to get in the way? But that's how the human brain starts working, and then they start reacting rather than responding.
Right, exactly. Something else too that I think that, and I would think that you would both agree on this, that really lacks with many of the, and I'm going to stick with the obviously the beginners and the amateur golfers here for the time being. One of the things that I always see, when I go up to the range and I'll kind of always sort of observe around and watch some of the other people on there hitting balls. And the one thing I see 9 times out of 10 is very few of them practice with any sort of purpose. They're just up there beating ball after ball after ball. Do you try to, especially with the new golfers, do you try to instill some sort of a regimen, if you will, based on their time frame to help them practice with purpose, or do you sort of take their natural abilities and then try to build something from that? What do you do to help people practice with purpose? Alan, we'll go with you first.
Well, what I do is, I'll ask a lot of questions while we're doing it. Why did it go there? And 9 times out of 10, they say, I have no idea. So I just told you 5 minutes ago, and I don't say it that way, but that's the point I'm trying to get across. That's the point I'm trying to get across to them, or 2 seconds ago. But then I'll tell them after the lesson's over, I said, you cannot come back until you've practiced at least twice. I don't care if you do it with wiffle balls in your backyard, how you do it, but you have to practice at least twice before you come back for the next lesson. As they get more developed, then I tell them more ways to practice, and I believe in doing a lot of drills. Cindy does also, because that's what makes it practice more productive and makes it a little bit more not quite as boring if you're doing something like that. But then you start helping. I have a good kid player that he had no idea how to practice. I said, do you think tour players would sit here and just beat balls trying to work on a swing, hitting a hard 3-iron as hard as you can hit it? No. Well, he didn't even understand that. He had no idea that it meant, make half speed swings and hit a full shot. It goes 80 yards. He had no idea how to do that kind of stuff or how to work on his game. So you can start giving them a game plan to practice as they decide to get better, but you have to wait till they get better, because what's going to happen is most of the time they're not going to practice unless you demand them doing it.
Right. And Cindy, I would imagine you find a lot of the same. Do you work with players in helping them to develop a pre-shot routine? Some might have their own that they've sort of whipped together, but do you try to, obviously everybody, again, is unique and has their own style, but do you try to, very early on, try to ingrain the importance of a pre-shot routine?
Yeah, and to plan the process. How do I get ready to hit a shot? How far is it? What's the wind doing? What's your lie look like? What's the temperature? Acknowledge stupid. I have a typed out pre-shot routine card that I give everybody. This is what you need to do to plan, prepare, and perform a golf shot. And if you don't do this, then it's your fault because you didn't do what you needed to do. Now, I give them guidelines, and then I said, this is my version of what I want you to do. Once you know how to play the piano, you can improvise and make a new song. And then you can create your own. But at least when they don't know what they're doing, you need to guide them and help them.
It's amazing. If I'm help her with some of her group lessons, it's amazing to me how, or if she's out of town, I might take over them. It's amazing to me how she impounds that into them when she first starts teaching. Follow this routine. She gives them that card, and inevitably, 9 out of 10 times, 20 minutes into what they're doing, they haven't done the pre-shot routine once. Right. Or if they do, they did it for the first 2 minutes that you told them to do it, and then next thing you know, they're just raking and hitting. Hadn't done anything within that, so she'll jump right on them. Do your pre-shot routine. I kind of let it go, and I finally said, did everybody remember Cindy's pre-shot routine? And she has a little mantra she uses, and I skip some of the words in it, but she does it, and then they start doing it again. So you got to stay on them to remember what they're working on.
Well, and that's exactly right. And I think one of the things that I've certainly noticed in my in my teaching is that people are looking for, and I think this is probably one of the biggest culprits in today's society, in not just in golf but in everything in general, is everybody's looking for instant gratification. They want everything now. They want to see results right away, and they're not willing sometimes to put the work in. But the truth is, and you know this, Cindy and Alan from playing competitive golf, that it takes really a lifetime. It's a journey, if you will, and process. And, it takes a lot of hard work to become a better player. Whether you want to become a tour player or just a better golfer, it's still going to take time and effort and, as I said, practice with purpose. The problem with, I think, a lot of the golfers out there today is they're looking for this quick fix. And Alan, as you pointed out, they're looking for, that quick tip to sort of help them miraculously, handle their game. That's just not going to happen. We know the realities of it. So how do we sort of retrain people to start realizing that that's not the way you're going to become a better player?
Well, you have to let them know that. Unfortunately, by human nature in our society here in America, you're not going to really change that too much. You can make them aware, and it's only the ones that really do want to get better that will listen to that advice. I'll hit a ball for them and say, "God, you make it look so easy." Yeah, I was telling them, I said, it looks easy because I've done it 6 to 8 hours a day, 8 days a week for 50 years. And I told Cindy one time, not too long ago, driving back from Florida or wherever I was doing, and I said, you know what? Thinking about the kids, some of the kids we teach too, I never realized how much work I did to really get good because I didn't look at it as work. I looked at it as following a dream, and it was all part of the big picture of where I wanted to go. I knew when I was a junior in high school I wanted to be a tour player, and it really didn't seem like work. But I was at the golf course 6 to 8 hours a day, all through junior golf and high school. My dad would drop me off. I got kids that come in once a week, and I know they're not hitting balls in between times they come to see us, or if they do, they go once. I have a young man the other day, I said, how much did you practice in the last 3 months? And he's got a great golf swing. Oh, maybe once a week. I said, those kids that are beating you, they're practicing 5 and 6 hours a day. You either step it up or kind of forget about your dream. If you don't want to work for your dream, you're not going to get it. So you try to make them aware of it the best you can.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I mean, unfortunately, as evolution happens, society changes. Especially as we see here in America. You're not going to change everybody's mind, but I think once you make them aware of what you just said, Alan, I think that helps in certainly some cases. Cindy, obviously playing out in competitive golf, again, allows you to see things that the traditional person's not going to see while they're out hitting golf balls on the range. What are some of the things that you do to try to make it sort of real-to-life experiences for some of the people that you're working with to help them prepare for whether it's a corporate event or whether some tournament they might be playing in? What do you do to help them prepare for an event like that?
Well, I think it's back to mind management and thought control. Everyone's so concerned about the results and their performance and what they're going to look like. It's all exterior or external stuff, and I try to make them aware that they need to know what their process is and what they need to do to be able to perform. So, I try to make them aware that everyone is afraid to look stupid.
Yeah.
But you will look stupid if you don't follow your own process. People are looking at you, but they don't see you. They're worried about themselves. Their eyes may be looking at you, but they're thinking, oh, my God, please don't let me mess this up. Instead of, here's what I need to do. I need to pick my target. Pay attention to what you're doing. And I say that. Pay attention to your intention. I intend to hit this ball from point A to point B. And if you don't pay attention to that intention, you have given up control of what's going on, and you can't get upset because you've created that. Then I just try to make them aware of that, that we all feel the same way. Tour players, in fact, Alan, we have copied a video, an interview from Rory when he won the British. All I did was, stay focused on my process, and I didn't worry about where I was, and I didn't look at the leaderboard, and, again, because you can't control that.
Right, exactly.
We all have the same problems, it's just at different levels. So every tour player has experienced the same thing that the beginning golfer is experiencing, or the mediocre player, or the person trying to prove. We've all suffered through the same stuff. It's just a matter of how we respond to that and start working on the things we need to work on.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. And guys, I see it as much as I'm enjoying talking with the two of you. I see that our time is pretty much up, and would love to continue. And I think, Alan, we're going to get you to come back on again in the future, and maybe continue this a little bit more. I think there's a lot of other questions that need to be answered, and unfortunately we don't have time to do that today. But I want to thank you for coming on and sharing some of your experience and insight. And Cindy, always a pleasure having you right alongside with me here, and much continued success, of course, with the Miller family and their endeavors in golf. And Cindy, we'll be back not next week, but the week after for some more great talk of golf. And in the meantime, guys, have a great week. And I want to thank all of the listeners out there for tuning in each and every week to the show. And we are certainly honored and blessed to have you tuning in and listening to us right here on the Women of Golf every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Time here on blogtalkradio.com. Thank you, guys, and have a great week. And Cindy, I will see you back here in a couple of weeks.
Thank you. Have a great week.
All right. Thank you, Alan, as well. Have a great week.